We fought for 10 days and that's enough. For the first time in 10 days of continuous mutual bombardments between the US and Iran, a new proposal is now on the table to stop this war again. Moreover, the proposal came from Iran, but it's also critically important for the Americans. The mediators, Qatar, Egypt, Pakistan and Oman, today delivered a plan for a 10-day ceasefire to the US and Iran. And here's the key question. If after 10 days of mutual strikes, neither side has achieved anything, neither side has broken down, and no one is backing down, why is this ceasefire needed at all, and what will it change? Doesn't this just drag out the whole crisis even longer? After all, just yesterday, Iran directly stated that they will not give up the Hormuz Strait no matter how much Trump wants them to or how much Trump pressures them. And let me remind you that in June, they already signed one memorandum and we all know how that ended. But what's important is that now Iran isn't the only one with problems. The United States has had nearly 100 soldiers wounded and 3 soldiers killed in just 2 weeks. And as it turns out, the army is physically exhausted. And the American press, which Donald Trump dislikes so much, is already shouting about this. Well, let's take a closer look at what happened in the Middle East over the past day and what this new memorandum is all about. A peace proposal and whether there will be a ceasefire for at least 10 days. My name is Alexei Pechi, let's analyze this together. But before we start, please subscribe to this channel, because we're moving toward the 300,000 subscribers mark. I would be grateful for your subscription. Every subscription here is very important. So, exactly 10 days have passed since the mutual bombings in the Middle East, and now the US and Iran, through intermediaries, are once again discussing a proposal for a new ceasefire. The first to report about it was Axios journalist Barak Ravid. He really has the best sources in the region, and so far I have never caught him lying. According to his information, regional mediators have passed on a proposal for a 10-day ceasefire to the US and Iran. 2 sources in the region who are directly familiar with the process have confirmed this information. What exactly is in the new ceasefire plan? And the strangest thing at the moment is that this ceasefire just suddenly, came out of nowhere. The ceasefire provides not only for a halt to hostilities, but also for the resumption of shipping through the Hormuz Strait, as well as the start of negotiations on a long-term agreement. The goal is to give Washington and Tehran new space to save the collapsed Memorandum of Understanding. But the point is that both sides have already been through all this and have not reached any result. What has changed now that they will announce a ceasefire again, and where are the guarantees that it won't be disrupted? There is also a separate detail in the draft regarding the disputed issue of payment for passage through the Hormuz Strait. And one of the ideas is to direct these fees into a joint fund, which would be managed with the participation of the International Maritime Organization. The issue of whether fees can be collected is no longer under discussion. No, what's being discussed is how to do it in a way that bypasses international law which directly prohibits it. So, Iran won here by a huge margin. At the very beginning of the war, Iran immediately announced that it would collect money for passage through the Strait of Hormuz. Trump assured that he would never let that happen. In the end, the parties are discussing how to still collect money from passing ships. Moreover, it seems that the region has come to terms with this, realizing that Trump botched this war and won't be able to do anything about the Strait of Hormuz becoming a toll passage. The main authors of the new ceasefire proposal are the Prime Minister of Qatar, Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani, the Qatari envoy Ali Al Tawadim, the Chief of Staff of the Pakistani Army, Field Marshal Asim Munir, and an Iranian minister, the Foreign Minister of Egypt, Badr Ahmed Abdel Ati. Plus, according to other sources, Oman is also involved in the mediation, which I remind you has been wavering throughout the war. At one point they were with the Americans, then with the Iranians, then back with the Americans, then they declared some kind of neutrality, and when missiles from Iran started flying at them again, they became negotiators. But it's important to remember that even this proposal for a truce is not a guarantee of peace, it's just one of the possible paths. And Axios writes directly that Trump has not yet made a decision because he is faced with 2 mutually exclusive scenarios. The first option is to agree to a new 10-day truce in order to reopen the Hormuz Strait, at least for some time to release some amount of oil onto the market since prices are really skyrocketing. The second option is to launch a massive joint military campaign with Israel to force Tehran to surrender. The US has already tried both options, and as you can see, neither of them produced results. And here is the key assessment from Axios. Officials believe that the next few days will determine which path will prevail. There is hardly any room left for the current exhausting, endless conflict that is paralyzing the Persian Gulf. Well, that is either a truce or a big war, but the current smoldering state of neither peace nor war is becoming less and less acceptable. It is telling how the administration of Donald Trump is behaving in this situation. According to Axios, the White House is studying the proposal and at the same time has called on Israel to refrain from actions that could close the window for diplomacy. Washington is also preparing for the possibility that negotiations may fail. And in recent days, the United States of America has deployed dozens of fighter jets and refueling aircraft to the region, concentrating the forces necessary for a serious escalation. A source in the Trump administration said directly that the sides are continuing their dialogue, but Washington intends to strike Iran as many times as Trump deems necessary. So, as they say, Trump is studying a ceasefire with one hand and preparing a massive operation with the other, and so far there is no progress. One of the sides has not accepted the document. And here's the question: who needs this ceasefire more? The United States of America or Iran? After all, Iran isn't the only one with problems. On Monday, the Pentagon officially acknowledged that nearly 100 American servicemen have been injured in the war with Iran over the past 2 weeks. Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell wrote, quote, "Since July 7, nearly 100 servicemen have sustained injuries of varying severity," end quote. 96 have already returned to duty. So, according to him, the overwhelming majority of injuries are mild concussions. But unfortunately, there are also fatalities. The Iranian strike on the military base in Jordan killed 2 American soldiers. Their remains were received back in the United States today. Washington released their names for the first time today. One was Private Isabella Gonzalez. She was only 19 years old. And First Lieutenant Tyler James Feakin, 25 years old. 4 more were evacuated to a hospital in Jordan. They were later discharged. And as of today, these are the 15th and 16th deaths of American servicemen in the current war with Iran. In addition, there is still no information about the missing U.S. Army soldier who disappeared during Iran's strike on Jordan. Interestingly, the Americans initially announced that he was missing, but then stopped commenting on it entirely. At the same time, the Washington Post writes that a source close to the administration stated that the U.S. plans to expand its military campaign, but the Army's capabilities are very limited. The infrastructure in the region has been damaged, and the stockpiles of long-range missiles and air defense interceptors have been depleted. And now the military is already leaking information to the press. They are concerned about a scenario in which the White House does not fully realize the scale of this problem when planning its operations. The head of the Defense and Security Program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, Seth Jones, believes that launching a ground operation would be a huge mistake. Here is his quote: "American forces are vulnerable to Iranian long-range strikes and lack the necessary resources. For such a campaign, behind the loud threat of a massive operation stands an army that, according to its own people, lacks ammunition and interceptors." But while negotiations over a ceasefire are ongoing, the bombings continue. On Monday night, the United States of America carried out its 10th consecutive series of strikes against Iran. The Central Command doesn't change its wording and writes more or less the same thing every night. Quote, "The strikes are intended to further undermine Iran's military capabilities used for attacks on commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz." According to the Iranian agency Fars, explosions once again rocked the port city of Bandar Abbas and Qasem Island. Both are located on the Strait of Hormuz and are constantly targeted by U.S. strikes. Iran is not backing down either. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps reported a new wave of missiles and drones last night. Kuwait stated that it is intercepting Iranian drones and missiles. The country's army wrote that it is countering criminal Iranian aggression, and it is asking the population to observe safety measures. Jordan shot down 3 Iranian missiles on Monday evening. According to Iranian reports, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps struck the Sheikh Issa air base in Bahrain. They also claim to have struck Amazon's central data infrastructure in Bahrain. A separate topic is the Strait of Hormuz and the ships. Yes, Iran continues to push vessels onto its own route. The Iranian authorities require ships to request permission before passing through the strait and to use only the northern route in Iranian waters, not the southern route along the Omani coast. Within a day, off the coast of Oman, shells hit 2 tankers operated by the Greek company Dinacom. Another tanker reportedly sustained a breach during an attack off the Omani coast. So, Iran is brazenly firing at ships passing off the coast of Oman, demanding that they only pass along its own shores, and the US is currently unable to protect these ships. And here is the inconsistency that explains why a truce is needed at all, despite all the belligerent rhetoric from both sides. On one hand, the Iranian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has stated that it will not comply with the June Memorandum of Understanding with the US, after Washington, according to them, violated it. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Baghai previously said that Tehran is not planning any negotiations and is now focused exclusively on the war. On the other hand, Iran reportedly claims that communication with Washington through diplomatic channels is being maintained. And moreover, the Iranians were the first to announce this. So, publicly they shout that there are no negotiations, but in fact the communication channels are open, and intermediaries are shuttling the proposal back and forth, and today it has finally taken some kind of shape. 10 days of truce. This is a classic Iranian tactic, by the way. Tough rhetoric in public while keeping the door open for bargaining. Plus, Iran understands perfectly well that its forces are not endless and they need to try to negotiate while they still have at least some strength left. Now, the main question that probably many people have is, why this new ceasefire if the fighting hasn't resolved anything? So, what's the point of it? So, 10 days of strikes, there have been deaths, hundreds wounded on both sides, and basically it's a draw. Iran didn't surrender, the US didn't force open the Hormuz Strait, so why stop for 10 days just to repeat the attacks again after 10 days? It's all actually cynical. Cynical. This endless war has become no longer worth it for both sides. Exactly because it doesn't solve anything, but it costs each side a lot. Iran needs a truce to stop the strikes on its energy sector and ports and to halt the destruction of Bandar Abbas. At the same time, they want to keep their main trump card, control over the Strait of Hormuz, because the plan doesn't require Iran to give up its influence over the strait, but rather for shipping to resume. So Iran is saying, okay, we'll take a breather, rebuild, regain our strength, but we're not giving up the Strait of Hormuz. The US needs a truce for 2 reasons, and both are really about weakness, not strength. First, the army is exhausted. There's a shortage of ammunition and interceptors, and according to American sources themselves, there's nothing to sustain a long campaign. Second, it's the economy, because the closed Hormuz Strait is driving up oil prices and consequently gasoline prices. And expensive gasoline at American gas stations is hurting Trump domestically. And let me remind you, just yesterday, oil prices once again rose above $4 per gallon. That's why a 10-day truce isn't about someone winning. No, it's just a pause so both sides can catch their breath, ease the sharpest pain, and try to negotiate at the table what they couldn't achieve with bombs. It's a cunning way to freeze the conflict at a point where no one has openly lost, but no one has won either. Now let's sum up briefly. The mediators Qatar, Egypt, Pakistan and Oman have put forward a plan for a 10-day truce with the opening of the Hormuz Strait and negotiations for a long-term deal. In fact, it's basically a return to the memorandum that both sides violated. Trump hasn't made a decision yet. He faces a choice between this truce and a major joint war with Israel, and in the coming days it will be determined which option will prevail. At the same time, the US has been bombing Iran for the 10th night, and in response Iran is striking Kuwait, Bahrain, Jordan and tankers near Oman. And beneath all this is something Washington would prefer to keep quiet about. That's nearly 100 wounded in just 2 weeks. 2 officially confirmed dead with their names already released, and an admission that the army might simply run out of missiles and interceptors for a long war. A ceasefire is needed not because someone has won by fighting, but because no one has won through fighting, and both sides have to pay more and more for it. So let's watch closely. The appearance of ceasefire proposals like this means both sides are running out of strength. It became obvious that neither of them will be the first to blink. They need to sit down again and try to negotiate once more. Now let's rewind time a little bit, and I'll remind you that at the beginning of the year, when Trump was just planning his war against Iran, back then I said that Iran is skillful at dragging out negotiations. That's their specialty. They can negotiate for years. And now they've basically dragged Trump into this trap, and they're going to, keep him hanging for a few more months. Until, well, Trump either gives in or signs some kind of agreement, which clearly won't achieve the goals he set out. But of course, he'll explain to his supporters that no, this is a victory. Let me remind you, at the moment, Donald Trump has already declared 39 times that he has won the war with Iran, or that Iran's forces have been completely defeated. So, as they say, draw your own conclusions. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.